Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Luke Papala Show. Throughout this whole podcast, when there's been any really popular comic book movie, I've reviewed it. And the movie that I really want to talk about today, after probably 3 days since I watched it, is the Superman movie. So a tradition my family and I have, my brothers, my uncles, my grandfather, my cousins, we go see all of the DC and the Marvel superhero movies. And, just like I said, the movie that we saw this past week was Superman. And we were really anticipating the film. I was anticipating the film. And there's been a lot of controversy because this is the first movie starting the DC universe with James Gunn at the helm. James Gunn directed it. It was this whole thing. It's been highly anticipated. And there are people online that really like the Snyderverse and always that small minority that are going to complain about everything. So I wanted to keep an open mind. And I did not like the film at all. I was not a big fan at all. The film, I give the film probably a 5 out of 10. It was mid. It was a big heaping pile of mid. A mid burger. And I'll explain why. This is not me trying to intentionally hate on the film because I do think the film had some really good qualities. And I'll start by saying those. I really loved the colorfulness of the film, like even down to the comic book like accurate costumes of Superman, of Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl. Like they all looked really good, and I really love how they transformed the city of Cleveland because it was so easy to and cheap to film into. They were able to do so much with the budget and expand on the budget. More so than if they had filmed, obviously, in New York City or in a bigger city like that. They were able to capitalize and film in a small market and make it look like Metropolis. So that was really cool. I did like that. What else will I say besides the landscape and the costumes? I did love the detail that they went into to show the intricacies of the sanctum, like that ice castle that they had for Superman, his like home base. I thought that was really cool. I thought that they really did a good job on that. Just the detail and the accuracy about how everything looked comic booky, like very comic booky. From everything like I just described, from the intricacies of the set to the costumes, all of that stuff. A couple of bright spots as well. I really liked the guy that played Mr. Terrific. He did a great job nailing the character from everything I understand about the character. Same thing with Nathan Fillion playing Guy Gardner, Green Lantern. I really liked his portrayal of the character, that kind of like asshole type Green Lantern core member. And just how they kind of didn't set everything up. They didn't have like a bunch of Easter eggs like they had in Avengers Age of Ultron, where they're like setting up this whole extended universe. It didn't feel like that. It wasn't like Easter egg, what's a good word? Like Easter egg porn. Like it didn't feel like they were just like throwing everything here, like this is our universe. It didn't feel like they were rushing anything, which is good. Now, everything else that I will say about the film. It starts off with Superman getting his ass kicked. They don't give you any origin story. They give you almost like a Star Wars intro where you have the summary or the epilogue, I think it's called, where you have all of the stuff that happened before the movie coming down. It was kind of like that. They described how Superman is 30 years old. 3 years ago, he became Superman, revealed his powers to the world. It was like 13 hours ago, he fought his first battle. 3 minutes ago, he lost his first battle, and you see him fall into the snow. And he gets his ass kicked for the majority of the movie. I mean, the majority of the movie, Superman, who is supposed to be the most powerful being in this new universe that they're creating, the DCU, gets his ass kicked the entire time. And you're going to see the movie to see Superman kick ass. My cousin, he goes, well, did you after? Because I told him I don't like the film. He loved the film. And we had a consensus between our group. It was kind of split. You know, some people in the group liked the film, some people did not. And he goes, why didn't you like the film? And I explained, because Superman gets his ass kicked the whole movie. And he goes, well, don't you want to see Superman be human? I said, no. I quite literally want to see him be Superman and kick ass for the majority of the movie. And he was left speechless. But that's probably my biggest criticism, that Superman in his movie gets his ass kicked the entire time. So that's one thing. But to continue on, we are left without an origin story in this movie. And this has been very popular over the past, I would say, 9 to 8 years, starting back all the way with Spider-Man Homecoming, the third iteration of a live-action Spider-Man portrayed by Tom Holland. And it didn't give you any origin story. It picked up a couple years after he was being Spider-Man, or a couple months after he was being Spider-Man, and never showed how he became Spider-Man. The same was happening with Robert Pattinson's The Batman Part 1. What else was there? You had that with Fantastic Four coming up. They're not going to give you an origin story. And same with Superman. And I feel like the problem now, because everybody was so tired of having an origin story, you were getting superhero fatigue, I would say. Now what's happening is if you don't get an origin story for these cornerstones of your franchise going forward 10, 15, 20 years, I don't think it gives you a chance to grow with the character. And that's my biggest criticism, aside from Superman getting his ass kicked, is I'm sorry, but I didn't like the actor's portrayal, and I forget his name. So I'm sorry about that, but I didn't like his portrayal of Superman because I couldn't believe him. And I know maybe that's hard to say. Maybe that was secretly the way he wanted to portray Superman, because they keep saying in this movie that Superman is an alien. And it was kind of the theme, is like overcoming him being an alien to become human. And I mean, if that was the goal of him acting and portraying Superman in a way that he didn't seem like he was human, well then I kind of get it, but that doesn't seem what they were portraying at all. That didn't seem like that was what he was portraying at all. It sounded like he was trying to be human and become human, and that seemed like that was the driving point of the film. And I just never had a connection to him as his portrayal of Superman. The same was with Lois Lane. I feel like the actress that portrayed her, it didn't feel like we were able to connect with the characters because they just rushed us into it. We never got an introduction to Lois Lane, and it told us about Superman becoming Superman, but we never really got to see him go through the bumps and overcome the hurdles of being this superhero. And so we see him in the beginning of the film get his ass kicked for the majority of the film. And then we go to Lex Luthor, who was portrayed by Nicholas Hoult, and didn't do a bad job. But it's never explained why he hates Superman. It's just shown that he hates Superman, and he hates him because who knows why. He has kind of like a disgust for metahumans, but not Superman, who happens to be a metahuman, basically. It never shows us why. We never understand why he has this vendetta against Superman and how he wants to kill him, essentially. So there's that, and that was a major problem. I did not feel a connection to any of these characters, besides like the Mr. Terrifics and more or less Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, not as much as Hawkgirl. But nevertheless, I didn't feel a connection, and that felt like a really big problem in this film. If I can't feel a connection to the character, then I'm not going to be invested on if said character is able to go on and achieve the goals of the plot or not. And so that was a really big issue. Another issue I did have is just this lack of a cohesive story. So Superman gets his ass kicked in the beginning of the film, and throughout the plot goes how it goes, and I don't want to spoil too much, but after, obviously Superman wins, and nothing changes. The world finds out that Lex Luthor is a piece of shit, which if you saw Sean Gunn, he plays Maxwell Lord. He has a cameo at the end of the film. It's kind of funny. And he said the only thing that liberals and conservatives can agree on is that Lex Luthor is like a piece of shit or something, whatever. It was like a kind of gag. It was funny. But like after that, you really don't, like nothing changes. Superman doesn't grow from the beginning to the end of the film. There's nothing there. The movie doesn't advance Superman at all. He's the same from the beginning to the end. He doesn't really grow. He has to be helped out by Lois Lane, who is a human being, and his mother and father. And it was kind of not what I was expecting at all. I was expecting Superman to go through the classic superhero movie plot line, right? So fighting a bad guy in the first act, and then in the first act you encounter, or the hero encounters, a problem. Second act, the hero has a big dive, right? Encounters something bad, fails, perhaps, and realizes his failure. And then for the third act, goes for the redemption arc, beats the villain, overcomes the whatever failure, and then grows as a character. We had none of that. What happened was basically Superman goes and tries to, how do I even say it? He gets himself trapped by Lex Luthor. Kryptonite's obviously a factor because why not? They just throw it in. It's a good plot device, I guess. Gets rescued by Lois Lane and Mr. Terrific. Doesn't even figure out a way to get out of a situation in his own movie. Has to get rescued by another superhero in his movie. Whilst on top of that, there is basically, like, if I can describe it to you like this, there's two fictional countries in the DC universe in this film, and it's basically Israel and Palestine. That's just what it was. You had the big bad, one of the big bads in the film was basically Benjamin Netanyahu. And it was kind of funny. Because Hawk Girl has the president and the leader of whatever this country is, which is basically Benjamin Netanyahu, ends up dropping him for like 200 feet in the air and kills him. So that was that. And it's revealed that Benjamin Netanyahu is like the villain that Superman actually lost to in the beginning of the film, which is like DC's version of like a Hulkbuster Iron Man armor, but it's actually this guy, and it's like a brown version of the Hulkbuster armor. But it's like that's the supervillain that he loses to. And we find that out, and it's kind of like this aha moment, this big reveal. And it's revealed that he's been working with Lex Luthor the whole time. And so the world finds that out, and it was this country, which is basically Israel, had all of the weapons, all of the military tanks, all of the soldiers fighting on their side, because it was Luthor Corps, because Lex Luthor was like embedded within this, or in bed with this government, so he can have more control. And on the other side was meant to represent Palestine, and it was so obviously meant to represent Palestine. I mean, these people were brown. They were Muslim presenting. That's what it looked like, and they had pickaxes and swords and stuff like that. It was obvious they weren't any match, and of course, it was meant to represent Israel, Palestine, and Israel being like so overpowered with all their weapons. It's just not fair. And so obviously the Justice League or the before Justice League, because it's just setting that up, you had Guy Gardner, you had Hawkgirl, and then you had the shape-shifting superhero. I forget what his name was, but he joined. And so you had them fighting or ready to fight Israel, or whatever the country of Israel was in this movie. They ended up winning, and it was exposed that Lex Luthor was behind everything. But despite that, it was very obviously anti-Israel and whatever it is what it is. Ben Shapiro didn't like it, which was quite obvious. You probably would have guessed that if you had two brain cells to put together. But this whole time, I'm just thinking, like, when am I going to see any growth? When am I going to feel invested in the characters? And I wasn't able to feel invested at all. We never find out why Superman or Clark Kent and Lois Lane are together, or how they got to know each other. We never found out why she knows his identity when she told him. We never saw, it felt like a superhero team-up movie as well, which it's supposed to be a solo film, and I get that you're setting up the broader DCU, but I don't know, it just didn't stick the landing with me. I wasn't a fan. Not to mention, there were two post-credit scenes, which were pointless. There was one the first one was Superman with Krypto, and just holding him and watching, I think, the sunrise or something, which was pointless. We waited about 10 minutes for that, and then we waited an additional 10 minutes for a gag with Superman and Mr. Terrific. They were looking at a crack because they had a black hole that happened, right? And the black hole was going to cut the Earth in half, essentially. And they were able to fix it. And the building that was fixed and repaired was like, instead of being matched up like this, because the black hole, like, obviously broken in half, instead of being matched up like this, it was like matched up like this. And so the wall wasn't exactly formed face by face, right and even. And he was like, it's a little off to Mr. Terrific. And Mr. Terrific's like, come on, man, just walked off. And it just panned in on Superman. And Superman said, yeah, I could really be a jerk sometimes. And it just ended. Like, that's it. So that was it was a waste. It was a 20-minute waste if you haven't seen the film yet and you want to see the film, don't wait. Don't wait for the post-credit scenes because it is pointless. I will say I did appreciate the John Cena cameo as Peacemaker. That was cool. And I did appreciate the Supergirl cameo. That was cool. They were able to set up a larger things in the DCU while also not making it feel like it was like all these Easter eggs and like everything's just, the whole entire movie is just setting up everything else. So I understand that and I appreciate that, but I was not a fan. It was not entertaining for me. I couldn't even look at it. Maybe if it wasn't a Superman-centered film, it marketed as that, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But if it's Superman's film and he's not even the one that beats the bad guy at the end, he has to have another superhero beat the bad guy for him at the end, and he gets his ass beat continuously. I mean, he's rarely holding his own except when he's going against, I believe the supervillain is Ultraman, and then there's the other supervillain with has the nanobots infused with her. When he fights him in the Guardians baseball stadium, like that was really cool. It was very cool, and I wish I saw more of that, but I didn't. That's the thing. And so I feel like they also too they pack too much in there. I would have liked to see a little bit less characters, a little bit more focused on Superman. Show his development. I want to understand because he did not have any character development in here, and I was not able to feel attached to the character. So that was my critique. Like I said, a 5 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10, mid, not a fan. But I will say I am encouraged by the greater DCU. I feel like James Gunn is trying to do it right. I do like that he's going more comic book accurate in terms of the costumes compared to Zack Snyder's DCU universe, because it was so dark, and a lot of people did like it, but the majority of people didn't like it. And so I know Batman vs. Superman, it grossed, I think I saw like 4 times more than what this movie has, and that movie made $1 billion, I believe. It is what it is, but this whole thing, I think he's doing the right thing by trying to establish other characters. I just didn't think it was good in this film. And once again, I wish you would have shown Superman actually dominating. I wish you would have given him a character arc instead of just making it like this, just flatline, and not really improving him. That's all. That's the take. So I'm sorry to go off for about 17 minutes here, but I don't know, it just bothered me. It just bothered me a little bit. Speaking of something else that has bothered a lot of people is Epstein. And that's not going away. That's the interesting thing. Jeffrey Epstein, that whole dilemma is not going away. And so more cultural commentators, more political commentators, more celebrities have been forced to comment on the whole Jeffrey Epstein client list and how the Trump administration, the DOJ, Pam Bondi, is not releasing it. And interestingly enough, Stephen A. Smith went on the Chris Cuomo show on News Nation, and for some reason, I don't know why, was talking about this. Listen to what he has to say about the Epstein client list.
You're in an uproar off the Epstein list? That's all you've got? It's really, really surprising that this matters. Of course, I think there's a list, but I don't know. I suspect, but I have no knowledge, nor do I care. It's Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out and enjoy myself. I'm getting ready to have a nice weekend. I could give a damn about the Epstein client list. It has no effect on me whatsoever. I have a life.
And this is the growing sentiment from celebrities and people in media, particularly the conservative movement, because they want to defend Trump. You should care a little bit because there were lots of victims, child victims, of all of these horrible things. You should care about the victims because the victims that had all these things done to them, they haven't got any justice yet. And it doesn't seem like they're ever going to get justice. So, pardon me, but it's a little bit infuriating. So I do take a little bit of offense when all these celebrities, these higher-ups people, like Chris Cuomo and Stephen A., look at them. They're laughing. They're both smiling about this. They're laughing. And I don't really think it's that funny. Let's continue.
I don't understand for the life of me why this matters so much to these. I'm talking about people losing it. They're crying on camera. They're talking about resignations. They're pissed off about everything. I'm like, really? With all the stuff going on in this country, with all the power that you possess because of the cachet and the influence you have because of your connection to this administration, That's why you upset at Trump. I didn't blame Trump one bit for looking at them and saying, really? That really matters to you? That's really that important? Now, maybe he had a different reason for saying it, trying to be evasive or whatever. I don't know. But I do know this. In the grand scheme of things, it ain't going to affect the lives of over 200 to 300 million Americans. No. I think we'll be just fine without knowing whether or not there was really a client list. I think we'll be okay. It's unbelievable that this is a big deal to me. It really.
And it's just so funny because, yes, this does affect the lives of 200 to 300 million Americans. Because throughout our lives, right, I'm 24 years old, but throughout our lives, we have been preached to that the people in Hollywood are the people that you should be like through our media, through our movies, through our TV shows, through our programming. Everything that we have been programmed, for the majority, has been Hollywood. And Hollywood, for the past however many years long, couple decades, multiple decades, they have been preaching to us for a long time now that you should vote a certain way, that you should act a certain way. In more recent years, you shouldn't have gas-powered cars. You shouldn't have any particular gripes with the LGBTQIA community, no matter how outrageous some of the stuff that they do is. You should vote Democrat. Are you Christian? Are you religious? No, you shouldn't be. And they shame you, right? And then when you find out what they do, how they live their lives, the Kevin Spaceys of the world, the politicians, the Prince Andrews of the world, the Bill Clintons of the world, the Donald Trumps of the world, etc., etc. You hear about George Clooney potentially, Tom Hanks potentially, Oprah potentially, Chris Tucker potentially, and the list goes on and on. And the point is, if all of these people, hypothetically, allegedly, if all of these celebrities really did do these unspeakable acts to these kids, these unspeakable sexual acts to minors, then all of that whole facade of Hollywood being perfect and all of these perfect people preaching their morals and values to you and how you should listen, it goes out the window. It's done. And so I think that this does affect every single American because it pulls down the wool from your eyes and you're able to truly see everything. I mean, the people that are making the laws, a lot of the people that are making the laws and did make the laws could potentially be implicated in this. Former presidents, former leaders of state, etc., etc. CEOs, everybody, the most powerful people could be implicated in this giant sex trafficking ring of minors. So yes, I do think this is a big deal because the people in power are able to get away with everything. And then you have middle-class Americans that are struggling because the middle class keeps shrinking day by day. And normal Americans don't have job security like all these elites do. And so if they see that they've been able to get away with all this shit, hurting all these kids, all these people now that are grown adults and are trying to come out and trying to testify, but they keep dying, isn't that a little bit weird? Shouldn't we be a little bit invested in that? These people are making our laws. And so I really think it's disingenuous from Stephen A. Smith saying he couldn't care less about the Epstein client list and have the nerve to say most Americans feel the same. My friend, you are out of touch. Very out of touch. It's so crazy. I really hate when celebrities try and do this and try and pretend that they know what Americans are feeling, man. It just doesn't make sense. This whole Epstein thing is not going away. You can pretend all you want if you're Trump, but it's not going away. Your base cares deeply about this because all of the politicians that you have been against, that they've been against for so long, are implicated. And if you continue to brush this off, and these videos resurface about you potentially being implicated. I mean, I have a video over here that I wasn't going to play, but I am going to play now, of Donald Trump speaking with his daughter. Speaking with Melania, talking with Melania, and just listen to how creepy this is, okay? He went on The View, and just the comments that he makes about his daughter and her sexuality and how she looks and how he would want to be with her. Listen to this, man.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I would be dating her. That is legit what he said.
You know what? You are moving on. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Well,
you're known for saying outrageous things, Mr. Trump.
Who are you, Woody Allen? We want to know a little bit more about you guys. So we play this game here. It's called Fave 5. I'll ask the question. Ivanka, you answer first, and then Dad, you answer also.
This is tough.
Okay, Ivanka, what's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex.
I was going to say sex. That is what he said. So, again, okay, maybe he's not implicated, but I mean, by watching that video, he very well could be. And it's very creepy, it's very scary. And so I do take an issue with Stephen A. Smith saying all this because our current president could potentially be implicated in this Epstein cover-up. And saying that there was a client list for so long, saying you were going to release it, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't exist, and you should stop caring, you should stop asking about it, is a bit hypocritical, considering his great detail in being friends with Epstein for over a decade. We gave you the live audio, or the leaked audio for the past, I think it was 5 days ago when we put out the episode. He's implicated, dude. And I think we should really take a initiative in paying attention to this because this is a big deal. It's a huge deal, and you just don't understand how big this could be if Trump continues to shy this away. Okay, so this is what Tucker said. Once again, this Epstein thing is a huge issue. It is a very huge issue, and Trump is continuously trying to put out this fire, right? And trying to ignore this Epstein issue. Well, look at what Tucker Carlson has to say about Donald Trump regarding the whole Epstein ordeal.
The cover-up has been going on since 2007, almost 20 years. And so the real question is not, was Jeffrey Epstein a weirdo who was abusing girls? Yes, we can answer that. The real question is, why was he doing this, on whose behalf, and where did the money come from? And those are the questions that need to be answered. And I think it's entirely fair to ask them. And it's not adequate to say anyone who asked them is somehow desecrating the memory of little girls who died in Texas. I'm not going to put up with that answer. I don't care who gives that answer. That is not acceptable. And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan? Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. I've spent my entire life pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA. That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things, murdered a bunch of people, participated in the murder of a sitting U.S. president. It's got a whole trail of crimes. That doesn't make me a disloyal American. It doesn't make me anti-American in any sense. I was born here. My family's been here for hundreds of years. I love this country. That's why I live here. So criticizing the behavior of a government agency does not make you a hater. It makes you a free person. It makes you a citizen. You're allowed to do that. The cover.
And I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Interestingly enough, before we continue on what Tucker's saying, I don't know why he continues to go off and on by criticizing Israel, but then saying, no, I love Israel. I've been there several times. It's a great country. The people are great. And it's like the government of Israel has done some really shitty things in the past 2 years. I don't necessarily know if saying I love Israel continues to convey your points in the best way. But no, what he's saying is true, right? He's saying that Israel was definitely behind this whole Epstein thing. The Mossad, Jeffrey Epstein was known to most likely be Israeli intelligence, right? Working for the Mossad. I've been talking about this for years. If you've been watching this channel, like that's something that I've been talking about. I'm very interested about. We'll continue to talk about it because I just think the hypocrisy of the elites is something that we need to shine our lights on, right? As many people as we can. And it's like, how we know that we're not allowed to say that Israel has all this influence over our government, right? It's a foreign government, has influence over America. They call America the great Satan and Israel the little Satan, whatever. But there's some truth in that. We have been fighting Israel's wars for the past 30 years. And this whole Iran thing was postponed, right? They bombed the nuclear facilities. Allegedly, the nuclear facilities are destroyed from, if you listen to Trump, but if you listen to the Iranian president, which I did, in his interview with Tucker, he'll say, no, it's not damaged. And we want nothing but peace and prosperity and just peace. And it's like, but you listen to Netanyahu, and it's like, I don't know who to believe. But I do know that a foreign country should not be able to have a very, very powerful lobby in America. If it was Russia and China, we would say, no, that this isn't allowed. If it was Iran, we would say, you're definitely not allowed. But for some reason, it's Israel. We allow it. And I do not know what they do for us. Nobody's told me that. I have Christian Zionists that are either in my comments or I encounter them in public. And they can never tell me when I ask, what does Israel do for us? And they never provide an answer. They can't provide an answer. Oh, you look in the Bible, blah, blah. No. What does the country of Israel do for the United States? Give me any reason, and I'll start to change my view. But you cannot give me a single reason. So part of my frustration when I look at all of my politicians voting to give more money to this foreign government, but in my hometown cannot get manufacturing jobs, when my hometown is decaying and in ruin. You look at cities like Baltimore. You look at cities like Gary, Indiana. You look at Youngstown, Ohio, my hometown, and so on and so forth. All of the great Midwestern cities have been pretty much decimated by offshoring jobs. And yet we could put these billions of dollars into these Midwestern cities in particular, but not exclusively, to try and revitalize the community, to try and just up the infrastructure, to try and get job growth here, something. But for whatever reason, we give billions and billions and billions of dollars to this one foreign country to kill innocents. And so pardon the frustration, but I don't understand why. Why do we have to continue supporting it? I just don't understand. I just don't understand. And the people that are trying to change, make good, positive change in our government, are being villainized by this foreign lobby, AIPAC, Israel, being called un-American by President Trump. When you talk about him making comments against Thomas Massey in particular, who wants to do good, who says, like, we can't continue to support this. We can't continue to send billions and billions of dollars over to Israel. And it feels like it's never going to end. Our greatest ally has nothing to show for it. So Tucker took a shot, and good for him. Israel was definitely behind the whole Epstein ordeal. And, yeah, the MAGA base this isn't going away. Like, Trump is going to have to do something because this is not going away. And so something else, this was a Turning Point USA event, and something else too. You can see the tide turning. Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk were on stage at this Turning Point USA event, and they mentioned the whole Epstein ordeal, of course, because it's popular, and everybody's talking about it. And just listen to the crowd, man, when they talk about this. They bring up Epstein being potentially Mossad, and the audience cheers.
Do you think there's any intel community involvement in this?
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I am convinced, based on my own sources and my own reporting on this story, he wasn't one of ours.
So he was an American, which leads basically three options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
So what does that mean?
You hear that? They're all cheering. And this is at Charlie Kirk's event, too. Charlie Kirk, who is somebody that is a devout Christian Zionist. Sorry for the voice crack. Has even said that he recognizes the Sabbath, the Jewish Sabbath, on a Saturday instead of a Sunday like in Christianity. And the people are catching on. The people are catching on. And you see Charlie Kirk now starting to grift like, oh, we should talk about Epstein. We should talk about it. And you see they're all saying, oh, fire Pam Bondi, fire Pam Bondi. Like, no, you should fire the guy that made Pam Bondi the head of the DOJ, the top cop. Because more people in MAGA are starting to catch on. But there are some, the core people in MAGA, that will not blame Trump for anything. Folks, I thought Trump was informed this time. I thought that he was going to hire the good people this time. I thought that he had his experience with all the neocons, with the Nikki Haley's of the world, with the John Boltons of the world, and I thought that he wasn't going to hire those people anymore. And yet, funny enough, there's just different neocons. You have your Marco Rubios. You have people like that. Your Warhawks that are still there. You have Mike Huckabee, who is ambassador to Israel. It's like you just switched them out for other neocons. That's just how it is. And come on. You gotta blame Trump for putting these people in the positions that they are and failing. You just have to hold him accountable. And we're gonna continue to do this, man, because people are really pissed. And so here's somebody that is on the other side that is saying, oh, no, you should, just like Trump, is saying, oh, no, you don't, why are you worrying about the Epstein client list? Why are you doing this? I'm referring to Adam Sosnick from the Patrick Bet-David podcast. And so Vinny, who is the angry patriot on the show, was going off about it, and Adam felt the need to tell us why we don't need to care about the Epstein client list, and basically telling us that we're stupid for asking all of these questions, and asking why isn't the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, why isn't he being mentioned anymore, right? Because we know he was arrested on child pornography, I believe, and being a sex offender. So why are you telling us that we suddenly don't have to care about this anymore when probably all of these celebrities and politicians were implicated in his giant sex trafficking ring, and also too he might have been Mossad. So this is Adam.
Not like, I gotta get the flight logs, bro. I gotta know.
And I'm not saying that's how you operate, but I think there's a lot of losers and brokies that are obsessed with stuff like this. These are the same people that instead of going home and working out and building a business and doing things with their life, they're Netflix and chilling. Or they're just doom scrolling all day. And there's so many people that I think obsessed with things that they have no control over.
I get it, but I get where you're coming from. But Adam, that guy that's drinking Mountain Dew in his trailer and sitting there, who's an American patriot that pays his taxes and has kids and a family, Adam, he wants to know if the government that he's living under is controlled by foreign countries because they have tapes of them raping fucking underage kids. Adam, it's not a shiny little thing. No, Adam,
I don't think
it's not a shiny little thing in the air.
Everything you were right. Everything you were right. Everything you said is accurate, other than the word controlled.
They are controlled.
The intelligence community.
Adam,
I don't know anything about this.
Adam,
they communicate.
You didn't hear the CIA guy from yesterday, Adam. Think about this, Adam. If you are comfortable with Mossad, which is Israel, or Russia, or anybody, their blackmail ring, their operation. Think about this, Adam. Would you be comfortable as a country going, you know what? Epstein's our guy. We own him. Lex Wester, all this money, he's a billionaire. Let's wire everything, bring everybody there to have sex with underage kids because it's the island and whatever. And we're going to use that to get what we want. CIA, Mossad, anybody. How disgusting and evil. If you really think about that, step back from who it is. I don't give a shit who it is, Adam. If that is your operation, holy shit, you are one of the most evil, disgusting unit operation, period. And for those little people, Adam, the ones that you think are stupid that are sitting there, they don't just want the flight logs. They want everybody that's involved to fucking go down, period. Accountability. It's simple.
To me, it's just a whole lot of noise, and there's not a lot of signal. It's like, all right, yeah, can we stay focused on the fact that the Wuhan lab that was in Wuhan when there was a lab leak and basically took over the world?
Let me tell you what.
A valid point. I'm done watching that. A valid point, but also too, you shouldn't dismiss all of this stuff with Epstein. By the way, look up what Adam Sosnick's ethnicity is and why he cares so much about Israel. Well, we won't say the quiet part out loud here, but you get it? You get why we should kind of care about this, because the wall has been pulled over our eyes for so long. And if all of our rulers are implicated in this giant sex trafficking ring, then I think it's a big problem, especially because minors were involved and minors were hurt. Hundreds, if not thousands of minors were hurt and exploited and pimped out by these celebrities and politicians and CEOs. And I'm sorry, but I can't stop caring about that. If the people that are telling you what to do are secretly pimping out little kids behind the scenes, I think that we should probably be concerned. And I'm not letting it go. Not letting it go. I've been talking about this for 3 years now, 4 years, since I started podcasting, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. And the MAGA base will continue to talk about it too, and the left will as well. And the left is doing it because they're brainwashed and they don't like Trump and they want to see him go down in any way, which is fine. But the people are pretty united on this one. Very, very united. And so that's all. I don't want to go too much. I don't want to pontificate too much about it, about the whole Epstein ordeal. I've talked about it enough. But it's very frustrating, you know. It's very frustrating when the Trump administration says we're going to be very transparent, when Dan Bongino, when Kash Patel, when Pam Bondi say we're going to be very transparent, and then they just do the complete opposite of that. So it's very frustrating. But I do have one more thing to talk about, and then we will be done today. Nick Fuentes went on Candace Owens' podcast, which is crazy because he's slowly been gaining traction over this past year. And Candace is probably the most mainstream political pundit that he has had an opportunity to go on their platform. And boy, this interview, it was about a 2-hour interview, and I watched the whole thing today and was really proud of Nick because it felt like Candace at the beginning of the conversation was saying how she wanted it to be just a good old-fashioned conversation. And throughout the interview, what I kind of got is she started to interrogate him. She started to interrogate him on, understandably so, his views on race. But then she started to grill him for not having a family and not dating. And she started to grill him over his personal life and everything like that. And it kind of felt like a little bit hostile. And when he kind of went back at her and just was very cordial, it was a cordial interview. But when there was any sign of kind of pushback, she's like, hey, I thought this was just a conversation. And she's a little bit crazy too, but this was very interesting. So we'll play a couple of clips, and then I'll really talk about like what I felt about the interview, and then where Nick goes from here and where Candace goes from here. But this is Nick and Candace talking about IQ. And it's very interesting, so we'll play this one clip.
So you don't think that there's group differences on average between the races?
I think, just to be clear, I think there would be group differences if you took, like we were talking about, an American versus somebody who graduates college in Europe. There would be tremendous differences.
Not tremendous, but there would be slight differences. But you don't think that racially there's differences between races?
I think, because we have huge differences culturally. So going to your point of saying, I don't want to live in a black neighborhood, well, neither does LeBron James when he gets money, right? And there's a reason for that, because there is something that's happening culturally in Black America that's been going on for a very long time. But that thing, I would argue, didn't exist in...
What about in Africa and Haiti? They're killing each other in Africa and Haiti. Everywhere where they are, you have these problems.
Yeah, I'd like to look into, and I'm pleading ignorant, but I've heard some things about what happened in Haiti and what the Clinton Foundation did there. So I think I'd have to look more into the history of Haiti to be able to push back on that at all.
And so he makes a point about IQ. And... listen, whatever you think about Nick Fuentes, I'm not going to endorse anything, but I am a fan. Definitely a fan of Nick, a lesser fan of Candace, but still a fan as well. And she really didn't have anything to say for his point about IQ and how IQ definitely does matter and how race could potentially matter. She never had an answer for his argument, and it was very interesting to see. He was talking about, too, how he wants to have kids and grandkids that look like him, to be white. And he said he could understand how Candace would want to have kids that are black, even though she's in an interracial marriage. She's married to a white guy. And she could not put herself in his shoes and understand why he wanted to have kids that looked like him, which was kind of interesting. And that was a whole thing on the IQ. And for whatever reason, she couldn't put herself in his shoes. And so that was just one clip. And I want to be really selective on what I play because that stuff did get copyrighted. So there is that. But it was just an amazing interview. Something else that she did try to corner Nick on, which I think he can improve on it, is how he goes at people. He kind of told her his whole life story, and just up until when he was 18, up until now, and was continuing to tell her how he was censored and blocked, and how he had to resort to live streaming on Cozy TV, and how like everybody hated him, and she kind of dissected everything that he said, and was able to kind of humanize him a little bit, but also say, hey, listen, like, I didn't know that you were being canceled like this. I would have spoken out for you. And a part of it, the interview, was her and him going back and forth, saying, you know, you never really had me on the show, even though you said, and she would kind of fact check him. Whether or not those fact checks had any basis is up to interpretation. Kind of like a he said, she said. But what I was very disappointed about in this interview, there were some interesting topics. It was mostly about Candace and what she thought about Nick and Nick's upbringing and stuff like that, and how he got to where he is now. What I really did wish they talked about is Trump and his policies and his kind of failure in the first 6 months of his administration, but also to the war in Iran with Israel. And we didn't get any of that. And Nick's coverage of Iran, of the Iran-Israel war, the 12-day war, was fantastic. The best political commentary on the topic that I saw. And I sought it out. I wanted to learn more and more about potentially World War III. And he just broke everything down so in depth. And he was providing all this information about Iran and their centrifuges and Natanz and Fordo, and how Fordo is 20 stories underground. And the only military, the only Air Force that has the bombs and the missiles to be able to penetrate Fordo is the United States. And continuing on, he was talking about how Iran, they don't have any nukes because it's literally against Islamic doctrine to have those weapons. And just providing knowledge that you really can't find anywhere else. And he gained a lot of subscribers. The views, the live viewership was crazy. Just analyzing Nick Fuentes as a political figure, and the best coverage. And they didn't talk about it at all. And so that was definitely disappointing. But it felt like Candace was more so trying to get at Nick with gotcha questions, it felt like. Still an entertaining interview. I like to see Nick be platformed by more people. I would love to see him get a Ben Shapiro interview or a Jordan Peterson interview where they debate each other. But it probably won't happen, although he is gaining traction. I continue to follow him. He's more and more popular each day, and his ideas are very fascinating. But this is a liberal podcast. I believe this is Pod Save the World. And this is a clip of somebody on Pod Save the World. I don't even know who this is. But he's talking about Nick Fuentes, and they're kind of like fear-mongering a little bit about his ideas becoming mainstream. So listen to this.
I watched the other night like a 2-hour
Well, you're an enthusiast.
Debate. Dude, you're not ready for how fucked up this is. I watched a 2-hour debate hosted by Alex Jones on InfoWars between Dinesh D'Souza and Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes, for those that don't know, is this 26-year-old young guy, like straight up anti-Semite, neo-Nazi, like really, really bad, scary dude. But my takeaway from watching this, first of all, it was incredibly, like, it was not an ugly debate. It was very history focused and substantive, and like they treated each other respectfully. And the scary thing I took away from it was that Nick Fuentes, despite having like vile extreme views, can be really compelling and convincing sounding. And I think when someone like seems like they know their history, it seems like they're rational and reasonable, suddenly it's a lot easier for them to launder like deeply anti-Semitic, fucked up views kind of like into the mainstream. And I think that like when people like Charlie Kirk and other kind of more, they're not like mainstream Republicans, they're mainstream MAGA type influencers type, like kind of look out at the landscape, at the competition. It is that fringe far right that is the problem. It is not the kind of, normie Dems who are left over in Washington.
And so I will provide a brief prediction and then we'll be done. Yeah, they should be scared because their left-wing Gen Z voting bloc it's not happening. Gen Z is very much right-wing and becoming more radicalized each day because we have all of the access to the information on the internet that the boomers, that Gen X doesn't have, that millennials don't seem to care about. And so, yeah, the more people notice with everything, the more of Nick Fuentes' ideas are going to populate. So, there's that. But I will say that Dinesh D'Souza debate with Alex Jones, it was interesting. But I feel like they never really got anywhere, and Dinesh accused Fuentes of being a Democrat based off of all his beliefs. And so I watched it, but I really wasn't entertained. It wasn't, nobody really won the argument, I would say. Nick was civil, but nobody really won the argument, in my opinion. But it was cool. It was cool to see. It's cool to see Nick get more platform from these mainstream people. And like I said, I would love to see a Ben Shapiro, a Jordan Peterson, even a Charlie Kirk debate. But I don't think that their ideas will have any legs. So there's that. But it's been a great podcast. Once again, I appreciate you guys. If you give the channel a sub, give the video a like, a comment. If which is cool, we're finally monetized. So congratulations to you. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Shide appreciates you in the new studio officially. And yeah, we're doing membership, so it's probably going to be active. If not, we'll reinstate it. But for 99 cents a month, you could support the show. As low as 99 cents a month, you could support the show. It's going to go to better equipment, better quality, better everything. So starting at 99 cents a month and up, you could support the show with memberships. And we will have merch soon. So I appreciate you guys, and we will see you.